Oh, I don't see myself on the camera. What's happened? This is a... I'm no on it. Why am I no on it? I don't understand it. Display name, yes, save. Strange. I have no idea. Can you hear me, Bob? Can people hear me? This is very peculiar. I've no idea. It's just a blank screen. Okay. What? Aye, that's it. Wait a minute. Bear with me. Aye, the camera's waiting to blink again. When you get to the bottom of that, everyone else is working by the camera. So, wait a minute. Still no went on, Sammy. Oh, wait a minute. It's doing something.
Fellow patriots, blood of my blood, sons and daughters of Erin, welcome.
Oh, Roshida Bahawalya, oh, Roshida Bahawalya, oh, Roshida Bahawalya, and Nesher Hooked Towery, the Granium Wellick Takter Shally, Ogley Artel Ogna Garda, Gaelic Fadus, the Frackness Body. Escorted Rignagal.
Didn't die for abortion. Bobby Sands didn't die for mass immigration. You told candidates in 2012 or the general public that you were pro-life. How can people believe you? Now you're pro-abortion. How can anyone trust you?
I have my views in this here. I am pro-life. I believe.
Well, how come you voted for abortion?
Because because people are travelling, and we've had this debate. We've had a referendum. People are travelling in relation to terminations. They're not getting the aftercare that they needed. We believe that it was right to have a referendum on those limited circumstances, and the people cast their vote, and that is now law.
But do you think the 1916 heroes would have died? Did they die for abortion? Did they die for that?
They died to free their country. They died for
But Sinn Féin support the butchering of our unborn Irish babies.
13,000
children murdered every year.
Nonsense. I don't know why you've got against Sinn Féin, but carry on anyway. Good luck to the
Irish Republicans.
You've made that point a number of times now.
Alright folks, how are we all getting on? We just finished up bagging the food there. As you can see, we've got in this bag a turnip, some carrots, some lentils and some rice. And we've got 5 kilo bags of potatoes as well. So this van here is going to Strabane, and as you see here on your right, this here is going to Maharaj. See the onions in the back too. So this is the first dispatch of the food aid, helping our Irish men and women, our Irish brethren. So I just want to thank everybody again for helping me, for the volunteers who put their health at risk to do all this, and for everybody who donated financially.
Brilliant, I'm back. There's a loose wire. We found out there's a loose wire. I think the wee dog must be pulling it out. Anyway, that was some great stuff from Big Niall. I mean, that last video there, you seen we're getting the food bags out. That other car was mine. And the police actually came. The police service in Northern Ireland came and said, what are you doing? You're not allowed out because of COVID. I said, get stuff. Anyway, he said, you've got to only be family members. I said, this guy's my son. I'm standing there. Niall's about a foot and a half taller than me. Looks nothing like me. That's my son. The guy looked, really? I said, aye, that's my son. What about it? But we got the food distributed across the country. And that's what we're doing a lot of that. Big Niall shifted hundreds and hundreds of tons of food with ourselves as well, right across Ireland to the old people and that couldn't get out. Now, let me have a wee look in here. Joseph Taylor, how you doing, Joseph? Thank you. And I know you've been contributing to this thing, this patrol thing. God bless you. Peter, was it Peter? Paul Telford, how you doing, Paul? I didn't have a word to say to the wife, never is. I'm not really sure. Ewan, God bless you, brother. Marty BFP, my good Irish friend. Kit Bear. Kit, I was talking about you yesterday. I was actually talking to myself about you because I was locking up the church last night again every night to say a wee prayer for you all. And I thought, it's locked. What just happened to Kit Bear? I haven't heard from him for a while. So I'm so glad you're here, Kit. God bless you, and I hope you're doing well. Roger Madison, how are you, sir? Nice to see you. Yes, it's hideous here. It's blowing a gale. It's bitter cold, and it's a storm, and it's not nasty. R. Clements, how you doing, sir? Nice to see you. Brian Payton's there as well. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you for a while. So there we go. Andy Lightman, how are you, Andy? Nice to see you. So thankfully, we've got this wee thing ironed out for the moment, but it'll probably go in the blink again. But don't worry, I can fix it. We're getting there. We're getting there. So that was Big Niall, you know, and the guy was arguing in the studio is a Sinn Féin leader who will one day be the leader of the whole Sinn Féin. And so there's the leader of Sinn Féin IRA. He's the top man. And Big Niall wasn't a bit taken aback. Big Niall gets stuck right in him, and quite rightly so. And, you know, in this island, you don't do things like that. And Niall comes in for a lot of criticism because he's had me in his show and he works with me and everybody knows he's friendly with us and we're friendly with him. And, you know, the Sinn Féin, who are supposed to be the liberals and who reject all form of sectarianism, they're the ones always criticising Niall for working with Protestants. Can you believe it? But listen, we don't have any problem. We'll work with good Catholics, good Protestants, good Orthodox people. Anybody good, we'll work with them. That's it. Anyway, listen to a wee tiny bit of scripture here before we continue. So we're in the book of Romans, the epistle of Romans, and we're in chapter 17 of chapter 1, verse 17. Hear ye the Lord. For therein is righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. Amen. And we know the Lord will add to his blessing to this, the public reading of his infallible, inspired, and inerrant word. And the people of God said, amen. And can I just tell you, in case you already know, that is what, when Martin Luther was a monk, an Augustinian monk, and he went to Rome, and he was in the old Vatican because St. Peter's wasn't built, and he was going up the stairs at St. John Lateran. I've been there. Me and the wife were there. Brilliant church, beautiful church. I think it's nicer than the Vatican now. And on the right-hand side of the altar, there's a set of stairs, and he was going up there on his knees doing the penance thing. And this came into his mind. For therein is righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. And that sparked everything. The Reformation, all that stuff, that text, the just shall live by faith. The big argument becomes between Catholics and Protestants is the Protestants say the just shall live by faith alone, where the Catholics say the just shall live by faith, yes, but also good works. So that's the debate, in case you didn't know. There's your potted theological lesson in a nutshell for the one day. So there we go. But that's Big Niall. He's a good guy. And he's out live the day down in Dublin or something. He's very, very busy. He's flat out because Ireland has been swamped like no other country in the world. And what they're doing in Ireland is different from everywhere else. They're building these giant camps all over Ireland, all in the rural areas. Camps for just single men. So you have a wee village with 900, 1,000 people in it. And then on the outskirts of that village, they put a camp of 500 young, single African Muslim men. It's crazy. Niall was out yesterday and they were all demonstrating because they wanted more money, and Niall was filming them. They got a bit rough with him, but Niall let rip on them. He's a big lumpy boy. He's a big sheep farmer. You know, he's a big lumpy man. So he wasn't getting pushed about with them. So he's good stuff. Keep Niall in your prayers. Please. Well, today I thought actually Mr. Griffin was on today, but I don't know where he went. He's never get his days mixed up. I thought it was Mr. Griffin today. So he might be on tomorrow, he might not be, I don't know. But we've got him set up and he'll be back on. So there we go. The Prophet for the Indigenous People, that's the name of the show. Prophet of the Indigenous People, or for the Indigenous People, I'm not really sure. But as you'll see there, the link, I'll put it in again, right? I'll put it in again there. There's a link for the Street Patrol boys. Now, good news is, through a very generous, several generous donations, we've actually got these. Where are they? We've got them. They're ex-police. Obviously, take the police badge off. We've got them. Okay? They're ex-police. Kevlar, they're bulletproof. They're ballistic and stab-proof. They're very expensive, but we've got them second-hand from a people that does the ex. They take the police thing off, but it's one of these, surplus places. So we've got them. We've got a dozen of them, and you clip on your camera and all. So we're just waiting the cameras coming. Walkie-talkies, big, massive torches that some people say could be used as a baton, but that's not for me to say. So we still need a help with that. But we've managed to buy the vests are bought. They're bought. Well done. Thank you. God bless you. They're bought. And they're going to England. They're going to North England. Kit Bear, I'll tell you, I don't want to say online, but they're going to a place not far from you where the people are taking matters into their own hand and they're going to patrol their own streets instead of whinging and moaning and marching up behind Tom Robinson singing songs and stupidity. That these grown men are taking their own matters in their own hands and they're going to patrol their own streets. If the police won't do it, good, decent men will do it. And these are good, solid Englishmen, so very glad to be helping them. But we hope this is a pilot scheme. And other folk in Britain will see this and think, why don't we do that? And we can start getting these groups going. How do you think these massive vigilante militias we've got in Northern Ireland started? I mean, we can now put 100,000 on the street from a population of 1 million. But this is how it started. Just groups of men having to take things into their own hands and protect their own people. And from that, we grew and grew and grew. Now they're 100,000 strong. In England, that would be equivalent to being about 5 million strong. So we hope this is a pilot, that people can see this and people say, we can do that. And we'll be only too happy to help them. Because we've got a lot of experience in this in Hungary and Serbia and different countries. We have the experience of doing this kind of stuff and organising it. So there we are. It's great stuff. It's brilliant stuff. So the title of the show is, because we're coming up, we're in February now, and shortly we'll have St. Paddy's Day, St. Patrick's Day. You won't believe this, but a lot of the Catholic, Republican, communist towns now in Ireland this year have cancelled St. Paddy's Day for the first time ever. Dundalk, the biggest heartland of the IRA, just over the border, they have cancelled St. Patrick's Day. They say they can't afford it, but they can do all these African events and multicultural parades through the town. All the money's been spent on that. Imagine it. The most Irish Republic town in the island of Ireland has cancelled St. Patrick's Day. I've got a good mind to go myself and I'll just do my own St. Patrick's Day parade for them. It's a disgrace. But there we are. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. It's bonk. Aye, exactly. Kit Bear, you're 100% right. The Jewish community in London have got their own police force. I think they even have one in Manchester. So yes, but it's just ridiculous. Cancelled St. Patrick's Day parade. But anyway, as we're approaching St. Patrick's Day, we see America turning green, don't we? The river in Boston goes green. They're all out there. The big parade through New York, and everybody's going, we're Irish, and there's 40 million Irish live in America. No, there's not. The vast majority of people from this island are not Irish, Gaelic Irish. They're Ulster Scots, they're Scotch Irish, and that is what's formed the American character, the ruggedness, the frontiersman, the old raccoon hat with a rifle. That image, that's not to do with Ireland. The Irish weren't even in America then. The Irish came in the 1850s. The Scotch Irish went in the between 1700 and 1770. That's when hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people went there. So Nick Griffin sent me this, and I thought, this is brilliant. I must show people this. Because everybody thinks they're Irish, and they're not. Kit Bear says, there's a good, what's up with him? How is Mitch? Anybody get any news on Mitch? Because Mitch was in the hospital with pneumonia. Does anybody have any news on him? I don't know. If anybody has, please let us know. Anyway, I'm going to show you this video. It's about 12 minutes long or something, but it's well worth watching, especially for Americans and British people who don't know the difference either. So, for example, people like Reagan had a good Ulster Scots in them. 14 presidents had, a lot of the early presidents were Ulster Scots. People call them Scotch Irish, but Ulster Scots. The Bushes and all that. Joe Biden, thankfully, was not an Ulster Scot. He was Irish. And they're welcome to him. So, exactly. So let me see if I can get this film playing for you. Have a wee look at this and I'll come back, okay?
Active mind. We dye our rivers green, We consume ungodly amounts of corned beef, which, by the way, isn't actually a traditional dish in Dublin. We put on plastic hats with clovers on them. And millions of Americans, from the suburbs of Boston to the hollers of Kentucky, stand up and proudly declare, "I am Irish." According to the United States Census, roughly 35 million Americans claim Irish ancestry. That is a staggering number. To put that in perspective, the entire population of the actual island of Ireland today is only about 5 million people, 7 million if you count the North. That means there are 7 times as many Irish people in America as there are in Ireland. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to talk about at the parade. If your family has been in the United States since before the Civil War, if your family settled in the South, the Midwest, or the Appalachian Mountains, and if your family was Protestant, not Catholic, then you probably aren't Irish. At least, not the way you think you are. You're the victim of a 200-year-old case of mistaken identity. You don't belong to the story of the potato famine. You don't belong to the story of the tenements of New York or the docks of Boston. You belong to a different story entirely, a story that is darker, bloodier, and much more violent. You aren't Irish. You're Scots-Irish. And today, we are going to find out why you forgot who you are. This matters because your identity isn't just a fun fact for a cocktail party. It is the blueprint of your psychology. If you have ever wondered why the culture of the American South is so obsessed with honor, why the American military is disproportionately staffed by people from rural areas, or why you have a deep, almost genetic suspicion of the government, you won't find the answer in Dublin. You will find it in the borderlands of Scotland in the year 1500. But before we cross the ocean, we have to deal with the confusion right here at home. We have to separate the two tribes. To understand American history, you have to understand that there were 2 completely different waves of migration from that part of the world. And honestly, they didn't like each other very much. Group A is the one everyone knows. These are the famine Irish. They arrived in the 1840s and 1850s. They were Catholic. They were escaping mass starvation. They were incredibly poor, and when they arrived, they got stuck in the cities. They didn't have the money to move west. They stayed in Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. They became the police officers, the firefighters, the politicians. This is the Kennedy family. This is the movie The Departed. This is the St. Patrick's Day crowd. Group B is the group most of you actually belong to. These are the Ulster Scots, or what we eventually called the Scots-Irish. They arrived 100 years earlier, in the 1700s. They weren't Catholic. They were fiercely Presbyterian. They didn't stay in the cities. In fact, they hated the cities. They looked at the crowded streets of Philadelphia and said, "Absolutely not." They bought a rifle and a wagon and headed straight for the frontier. They went to Pennsylvania, then down the Great Wagon Road into Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and the Carolinas. They didn't consider themselves Irish. In fact, back in the old country, they were the ones oppressing the Irish. They were Scotsmen who had been moved to Northern Ireland by the British king to colonize it. They lived in Ireland for a century, but they never became Irish. They kept their Scottish names, they kept their Scottish religion, and they kept their Scottish temper. So if your last name is distinctively Scottish, names like Graham, Armstrong, Bell, Jackson, or Calhoun, but your grandpa always told you he was Irish, he was technically telling the truth geographically, because the boat sailed from Belfast. But he was lying culturally. He wasn't Irish. He was a transplanted Scot. And the difference between those two things explains almost everything about the cultural divide in America today. If you are enjoying this deep dive into the hidden history of your own family, and you want to make sure you don't miss the next part where we explore the Melungeons and the hidden German ancestry of the Midwest, go ahead and click that subscribe button right now. We are building a tribe of people who care about the truth, not just the myths, and I want you to be part of it. Now, to understand why you are the way you are, we have to go back. We have to leave America. We have to go back before the famine. We have to go back to a place called the Debatable Land. Imagine a strip of land about 40 miles wide running along the border between Scotland and England. Today, it is beautiful, rolling sheep country. But in the year 1500, it was essentially Afghanistan. It was a failed state. For 300 years, England and Scotland were at war. Armies marched back and forth across this border constantly. They burned every farm. They stole every cow. They killed every man of fighting age. If you lived in this region, you learned very quickly that you could not rely on the law. The King of Scotland was too weak to protect you, and the King of England wanted to kill you. So the people of the border stopped being farmers. Farming is pointless if an army is going to burn your crops next week. Instead, they became something else. They became semi-nomadic cattle herders, and more importantly, they became professional thieves. History calls them the border reivers. If you have a surname like Nixon, Elliott, Johnstone, Kerr, Maxwell, or Scott, these are your people. They lived in fortified towers made of stone. They slept with their boots on. They slept with their swords next to the bed. Their entire society was built around the raid. And you would wait for a moonless night, mount your small, fast horses, they called them hobblers, and ride across the border to steal cattle from the English. Then the English would ride back the next night to steal them back. This environment created a very specific psychology. It created a culture that was clannish, violent, and deeply suspicious of outsiders. It created a culture where the only thing that mattered was loyalty to your kin. If someone crossed a member of the Armstrong clan, they didn't call the police. They got on their horses and burned the enemy's house down. This is called retributive justice. And it is the exact same psychology that you see hundreds of years later in the feuds of Appalachia, like the Hatfields and the McCoys. That wasn't an American story. That was a Scottish border story that just happened to take place in West Virginia. But how did they get to Ireland? And why do we call them Scots-Irish? The story takes a dark turn in the year 1603. Queen Elizabeth I of England died, and her cousin, King James of Scotland, inherited the throne. Suddenly, the border disappeared. England and Scotland had the same king. King James looked at the borderlands, at these violent, ungovernable warlords, and decided he needed to break them. He executed the leaders. He deported whole families, and he came up with a plan to solve two problems at once. He had a problem in Ireland. The native Irish Catholics were rebelling against English rule. James needed a way to pacify Ireland. He needed a loyal population he could plant there to control the locals. So he looked at the border reivers. He saw a group of people who were Protestant, who were tough as nails, and who needed a new home. So he made them an offer. Move to Ulster in the north of Ireland. I will give you land. I will let you keep your religion. All you have to do is hold the ground against the Irish. Tens of thousands of them took the deal. They packed up their few belongings and crossed the Irish Sea. They thought they were being given a new start. In reality, they were being sent into a meat grinder. This is the period known as the Plantation of Ulster. The Scots arrived in Ireland, but they didn't mix with the locals. They couldn't. The native Irish viewed them as invaders. They were surrounded. They had to live in fortified farms, keeping their muskets primed at all times. This century in Ireland, from roughly 1610 to 1715, acted as a pressure cooker. It took the already hard culture of the border reivers and distilled it into something even harder. It created what historians call a siege mentality. They learned that they were a minority. They learned that the natives wanted to kill them. And they learned that the British government, who had sent them there, didn't actually care about them. Because once the reivers had pacified Ulster, the British elites turned on them. They were jealous of their success. They started passing laws restricting their trade. They raised the rents on the land. They told them they couldn't hold public office unless they converted to the Church of England. The Scots-Irish realized they had been played. They were the buffer, the guard dogs. And when the wolf was gone, the master started kicking the dog. By 1717, the situation was intolerable. Drought destroyed the crops, rents skyrocketed, and a whisper started to move through the Presbyterian churches of Ulster, a whisper about a new land, a land where there were no landlords, a land where there was no king telling you how to pray, a land that was wild and dangerous and free. They called it Pennsylvania. And so the ships began to fill. This was the Great Migration. It wasn't just a few people, it was an exodus. Between 1717 and 1775, more than 200,000 people left Ulster for America. That might not sound like a lot today, but at the time it was a massive percentage of the population. They didn't go to New England. The Puritans in Boston were too rigid. They didn't want these rowdy, violent Scotsmen. They landed in Philadelphia. But the Quakers who ran Pennsylvania were pacifists. They were terrified of these people. The Scots-Irish were loud. They drank whiskey. They shot their guns in the air. They started fights. So the Quakers did exactly what the British king had done 100 years earlier. They said, you can't stay here, but you can have all the land you want if you go west. They pushed the Scots-Irish out to the frontier, into the mountains. They wanted them to be a buffer zone between the civilized cities on the coast and the Native American tribes in the west. Once again, the Scots-Irish were used as a human shield, but this time it backfired on the elites because the Scots-Irish loved the mountains. It looked like the Scottish borders. It looked like home. They settled in the hollows and the valleys. They built log cabins, a design they actually picked up from the Swedes and Germans, but perfected for the American wilderness. They distilled whiskey because it was easier to transport over the mountains than grain, and they fought. They fought the Shawnee and the Cherokee with a brutality that shocked the other colonists. They adopted the fighting style of their Native American enemies. They learned to scalp. They learned to ambush. They became the frontiersmen. This is where the stereotype of the hillbilly comes from. It was originally a term for the supporters of King William, the Billy Boys, who lived in the hills. They were poor, they were uneducated, but they were free, and they hated authority. When the American Revolution started in 1776, the Scots-Irish were the first ones to sign up. For the English settlers on the coast, the war was about taxes and tea. For the Scots-Irish in the mountains, it was about revenge. They had been kicked out of Scotland, they had been abused in Ireland, and now the British king was trying to control them in America. They went to war with a fury that terrified the British Army. A British general actually called them the most dangerous enemy in America. He said that if he could defeat the Presbyterians with rifles, he could win the war. But he couldn't defeat them. At the Battle of Kings Mountain, a militia of Scots-Irish frontiersmen, the Overmountain men, destroyed a British loyalist army. Thomas Jefferson called it the turning point of the war. So, if these people were so proud of their Scottish heritage, why do 30 million Americans call themselves Irish today? Why did we drop the Scots part? It happened slowly through a process historians call the Great Forgetting. The first reason was the war itself. After fighting the British Empire, anything that sounded British, including Scotland, became unpopular. They wanted to be Americans, pure and simple. The second reason was simplicity. Scots-Irish is a mouthful. It is a clunky academic term. When a census taker came to a log cabin in Tennessee in 1850 and asked a man where his people came from, he would just say Ireland, because that is where the boat sailed from. He didn't give a history lecture about the plantation of Ulster. He just said Ireland, and over generations the nuance was lost. The grandchildren just knew they came from Ireland. Then came the Civil War. The Scots-Irish provided the bulk of the soldiers for the Confederacy, and a huge number for the Union as well. The war devastated their communities. In the aftermath, the poverty of the South and Appalachia froze their culture in time. While the rest of America industrialized, the Scots-Irish kept their old ways. They kept their dialect. If you listen to a heavy Appalachian accent today, you are hearing the ghosts of 17th century Elizabethan English mixed with the Border Scots dialect. Words like victuals and yonder, the structure of the sentences. It is a time capsule. But the biggest reason for the confusion is the simple power of the Catholic Irish narrative. When the famine ships arrived in the 1840s, the sheer number of Irish Catholics overwhelmed the cities. They had a strong identity, they organized, they built political machines, they defined what Irish meant in the American imagination. The Scots-Irish, meanwhile, were dispersed in the hills. They were independent. They didn't join clubs, they didn't hold parades, they just wanted to be left alone. So the definition of Irish shifted. It became synonymous with Catholic, urban, and Democrat. The Protestant, rural libertarian strain of the family was forgotten or simply relabeled as redneck. But the culture didn't disappear, it just changed names. We stopped calling it Scots-Irish culture and started calling it country. And bluegrass music? That is just Scottish folk music played at double speed with a banjo added. The square dance? That is Scottish country dancing. The obsession with guns and land rights? That comes straight from the Scottish borderlands. You didn't lose your history. It just became the default setting for American rural life. And this leads to the biggest twist of all, the one that causes so much confusion on Ancestry. Calm. There's a huge overlap between families who think they are Black Dutch or part Cherokee and families who are actually Scots-Irish. Why? Because the Scots-Irish were the ones living right next to the Native American tribes. They traded with them. They fought them. And yes, sometimes they married them. But more often, dark-complexioned Scots-Irish people, sometimes called the Black Irish due to ancient Spanish DNA or just weathering, were mistaken for having native blood. If you have a family legend about a Cherokee princess in your tree, but your DNA test comes back 100% British Isles, look at your map. Did your family live in Appalachia? Do you have a Scottish surname? Congratulations. You aren't Native American, and you aren't Irish. You are the descendant of the frontiersmen who built the country. So, next St. Patrick's Day, when you see the green beer and the plastic leprechauns, you don't have to participate. That isn't your holiday. Your holiday is every day you wake up in a free country that your ancestors carved out of the wilderness with an axe. If you want to know if you're part of this tribe, check your surname. Names starting with Mac or Mac are the obvious giveaway, but look for the border rider names. Nixon, Elliot, Johnson, Kerr. If you have these names, you have a legacy that goes back to the medieval warriors of Scotland, not the potato fields of Cork. And honestly, I think that is a much cooler story. If you are listening to this and realizing that everything you were told about your family history was slightly wrong, you're not alone. This is the American story. We are a nation of amnesiacs. We forget where we came from to become who we are. But the DNA doesn't lie. The history is there if you know where to look. We are going to be diving deeper into the specific clans of the borderlands in future episodes. We are going to look at the Armstrongs, a family so violent that the Bishop of Glasgow excommunicated the entire surname. We are going to look at the Grahams, who were deported en masse to the swamps of Ireland. If you have those names in your tree, you have a lot of explaining to do. So make sure you are subscribed. We are reclaiming this history one story at a time. The myth of the Irish American is strong, but the truth of the Scots-Irish is stronger. It is the bedrock of the nation, and it is time we remembered it.
So there we are. So my wife is an Nixon and I have Armstrong. And my family is so violent they were excommunicated. Good grief. Explains a few things. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, because this is it's a part of American history that most Americans are completely unaware of. And they should be, because that's what the American character was formed in the front by the frontiersmen. And of course, there were English and Germans and all the rest of it. But a lot of heavy lifting in America was done by these ferocious creatures from the borderlands of Scotland. Now, I've seen somebody saying there were Saxons, the borderlands. Not really. A lot of their DNA was ancient Britain, like the Picts. They were ancient. A lot of the DNA was ancient Britain. All these, I'm 96% Lowland Scot, and I've got 4% Danish, 2% Swedish or something like that. So there is a bit of that Saxon in us, but not much. Most of our DNA is ancient Breton, the ancient Britons. Same DNA as the Welsh and the Cornish and the people of Brittany in northern France. So this is much older DNA than the Saxon invasion. So there we go. It's very interesting, isn't it? It's fantastic. Great stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting piece of history that we need to know. So anyway, the link's up there again for these boys were helping, because, we've been busy with the building work, but we cannot forget our core principles. And we still need to get these things for the guys, these body cameras, very important nowadays. So you can dispute, if anybody says you said this, you've done this, you've got a body cam, end the argument. And we have the walkie-talkies and the comms thing, and these enormous torches. Some people say they could be used as batons. I wouldn't like to comment, but anyway. So we still have to get this. So the link's there. Try and help us out. If you can, help these lads out, because I want to go over and get a video with the boys on patrol. I'm going to go on patrol with them and see how we get on there. So there we go. I thought that was very interesting, and it's good to see different cultures and how cultures emerge. And I think you'll know now why, certainly me personally, I'm so connected to America. And people, not just me, people from this whole area, if you go up into Belfast, into our areas, there's paintings of the Alamo, there's all sorts of stuff relating to America. We are very, very pro-American, big time. So that way, I hope that explains it, because you think, why do these people from the other side of the water really have a affinity with America? Because you're our people, that's why. You're not just our cousins, you're our brothers. That's it. So there we go. The police use them big torches as batons. I know they do. Great. But it was great bit of history. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Really, really good stuff at all. I mean, there's a wee bit of, it's a wee bit awkward that these people were professional thieves and very, very violent and heavy drinkers, but they were deeply religious. The first thing we always done when we opened a settlement up, no matter if it was in Northern Ireland, here in Ulster, or in the Appalachians or the Carolinas, the first thing we done was we built the Meeting House. And if you go to Northern Ireland, you'll see a lot of places called Meeting House Lane. There's a church there. Our churches were called meeting houses because they weren't just our churches. They were our church, they were our court, They were the council main headquarters, the town hall. The church was everything because our Presbyterian faith is everything. It's not, I'm a Christian and I'm also a Democrat, a Republican. No. I am a Christian and everything else flows from that. So the court, the civil authority, the judge, everybody, the minister, everybody was based in the meeting house, which was the church. So we've got a meeting house here. So that's a wee bit of history for you. So let's have a wee look. We've seen the Nile thing. Now, some of your boys have been making a lot of these AI things, these videos up as a sort of promo things. They're really good. And we're starting to put a lot more of them onto our X account. So please feel free to go on there and grab them and download them and reshare them on your own social media. Here's one for an example. I don't know if it was Ewan that done this. If it was, God bless you, but I think Kai Patola is making some as well. So you can tell us, Niall, Ewan, if this is one of yours or Kai. So have a wee look at this. I think it's great.
Marksiści, lewacy, tego się boją, patrzcie! Zwyciężymy jeszcze raz! Awe! Awe! Chrystus Rex!
I think that was tremendous. And that reminds me, we've got a new one of these that's going out there soon, out to Bulgaria. Have a look at this. Have a look at this. This is obviously the Busan, the battle flag. What am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, battle flag, but look at this. They're a wee bit fancy in Bulgaria. They want them embroidered. We normally print these, but theirs is steel embroidery. Look at that. Can you see that? That's steel embroidery. They wanted it embroidered rather than being printed. So there you go. It's raised up. It's raised embroidery. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's absolutely spectacular, isn't it? Really nice. So it's raised. Sam, could you fold that up for me, please? I don't want to treat it with disrespect. So that's their latest flag. We've got a big militia who work with government approval on the borders. Big militia, several hundred strong, rifled up them, keeping the terrorists coming out of Syria and these places and get up through Turkey and then into Bulgaria and then into Europe. You need to get this dog here. You need to stop them at that border because when they get here into Europe, it's too late then. You can't get them out. So a lot of people don't know this, but we're heavily involved in that border stuff. Heavily involved in that border stuff. And a lot of folk don't understand that. You maybe don't understand it watching this, but we've been doing that for a number of years and we keep in contact with the lads in Bulgaria regularly and they do a great job. They do a great job. And the Templars are massive in Bulgaria. There's a different branch of Templars there, but we have our people are there as well. And our people run that big militia. And it's very dangerous work. Me and Mr. Griffin were out there a few years ago. There was a Russian instructor made us crawl on our belly about half a kilometre through the woods. She says, we're too old for that. We couldn't move the next day. We were crawling, but I say crawling, we were mainly rolling. Mr. Griffin was rolling more than me, I may add. But we were mainly rolling through the forest. They're all armed to the teeth and everything. It's good stuff. But you need to stop them there because once they get to the west, it's too late. You can't get them out. So that's the way to do it. Keep them there. The temperance movement was big in the North England and the US. Yes, well, the biggest place for temperance, the biggest town, the biggest temperance lodge, you call themselves in the old days, in Britain was in my hometown, Airdrie. And we had it started up the savings, the temperance movement savings bank, which was known as the Airdrie Savings Bank. There were 20 branches across Scotland and a bit some in the North England, and it only packed in a few years ago. We used to bank with them because we knew them, and my dad knew the gaffer of the main branch, and we just phone them up, open an account. We'd never get our account shut down, nothing. But new banking regulations put them out of business, and that was the old temperance bank. And we got on brilliant with them. They'd done all our banking. And they used to do all the banking for the pro-life groups because they would just no way would they shut you down. But sadly, those days are gone. It's crazy. But there we go. So that was a wee thing I wanted to show you there because that's a very interesting thing. Wait a minute, what is that there? Wait a minute, I just want to see this. Back to that in a minute. So that's where we are now. You probably, if you've been watching the news, the Prime Minister of this country, Keir Starmer's in terrible trouble. Because he appointed Lord Manderson, reprobate of a man, raging homosexual, and a filthy reprobate of a demonic man. he appointed him the ambassador to America, and of course he had to be sacked for that job. And now it's all come out that he was friendly with, what do you call this guy? Epstein. Even after his conviction, even after he was convicted, because he was convicted before and he'd done whatever he'd done, then he got out, then he was convicted again. So Mandelson was friendly with him. And the Prime Minister knew about this and still appointed them. So it looks as if Keir Starmer might be getting ousted as being Prime Minister. Now, it won't lead to a general election. It'll just mean somebody else will turn over, like one of the Miliband's who's mad green nutter, or Rayner. What do you call her? Something Rayner. What's that got that woman married with the red hair? Rayner. That Labour woman, Rayner. She's got red. Angela Rayner. So the next Prime Minister might be Angela Rayner or Miliband. Either or. It's just a disaster. But that's what's been going on. So if you think your politics are dirty and murky in America, you should try be here. Our politicians are rotten. Do you know there's a High Court ruling now that there's only two genders, male and female? That's government. The government are completely ignoring the High Court. That's like your Supreme Court in America. Just totally ignoring it. And people are still being penalised for saying you can't play in the sport because a women's sport because you're a man, still being penalised, even though there's a High Court ruling. Terrible. So Andy says, whoa, that's interesting, Jim Airdrie. The diamonds. Exactly. I tell you another thing about Airdrie. You know, everybody knows about Count Dracula, the Dracula films. Remember Bela Lugosi, the children of the night. I think they sound like Imre, don't they? Brother Imre. I think he sounds like, well, Bela Lugosi was Hungarian. That's why he sounds like Imre. Anyway, the whole story about Dracula was made famous by Bram Stoker, who was an Anglo-Irish person who lived in Dublin, okay? 1890s, whatever. Who else lived there? Who lived next to him was a guy called Arthur Conan Doyle, who then wrote Sherlock Holmes. People say he's Irish. Again, he wasn't Irish, Anglo-Irish, English-Irish. But Bram Stoker, who came out with the vampire thing, a Dracula thing, his great auntie lived in Airdrie, in a big mansion in Airdrie, and he used to go and visit her over the summer now and again from Dublin. And while he was there with this old lady, she told him the story about Dracula. So Bram Stoker got the story about Dracula from his great auntie who lived in Airdrie, my hometown. Isn't that wonderful? What about history? There you go. Yep. Oh, Bram Stoker's wife reverted to Catholicism. Yes, it was a big thing then. There was a whole Oxford movement. A lot of toffs and intellectuals all reverted to Catholicism in England between the 1830s and 1860s. Yes, it was a big thing. Cardinal Newman, for example. I went to a wedding once, a Catholic wedding in St. Stephen's Green in Dublin, and it was the Church of Cardinal Newman. Yes, he was from, but I think he came from the Midlands, and he was a bishop in the Church of England. He became a cardinal in the Roman Catholic Church. Yes, so yes, there's a lot of good history here. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. I mean, useless information nonetheless. But anyway, those films. Did you make that? Did you do that film, E1? Oh, it's not mine. Oh, I see it there. Ave Christus Rex. It's not yours. I wonder who done that. Maybe it was Kai Patola. I don't know. We'll try and find out who done that because it's very good. We should get him to do some more. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on now with the AI. And I just realised how good it was the other week there because traditionally, my community here in Northern Ireland are terrible at doing music. We're great at marching bands. You know that. You've seen us. We're brilliant at that. Well, the Irish are terrible at it. But when it comes to ballads and music, the Irish are fantastic. We're not so good. And then I seen this thing the other day. It's a beautiful old song about Londonderry. That's our second city here in Northern Ireland. And it's the city that gave the background to the Alamo because many of the men at the Alamo, their grandfathers and great-grandfathers had been in Londonderry where we shut the gates on the English king and said, no surrender. That's where that phrase comes from, no surrender. The apprentice boys, 13 wee boys, shut the gates and said, no surrender. And our commander deserted us and went over to the English. And that's what the people in the Alamo, who were mainly Kentucky men and Tennessee men, were reenacting because they knew this was part of their family DNA to be in. It was 30,000 days in Londonderry. And in fact, the letter that freaked everybody out and made everybody flee to Londonderry was found here. It's called the Comber letter. And it was a letter saying on such and such a night and the Irish were going to rise up and slaughter everybody, which they'd done 50 years before. So everybody fled from Comber up to Londonderry, and many thousands of people died on the road going up there in the middle of the winter. But that's what happened, and that was the history, and the gates were shut on the 18th of December. So it's very interesting. So when I heard this song, which is a ballad to that city, I thought, this is fantastic. Somebody in our community must be able to sing and all that. And then somebody said to me, Jim, that's AI. I thought, What? AI? Really? So we have a list of songs written by Mr. Griffin, mainly taking Irish popular tunes and folk tunes from America and whatnot, and he's reworded them. But we've been looking for the right person to sing them. We got the Templars Are Here, sung by that French group. But it's very French, you know, the swords of your fathers. You know, it sounds like a Monty Python sketch for a French accent. But with AI, I think we can do this now. So what I'm trying to find out for your people, who is good at this AI? Who's capable of doing this? I'm going to let you hear this. This is a complete AI song. There is a song, original song. It sounds nothing like this. It's somebody like me singing. It's hideous. But somebody's went and done it AI. And it is absolutely outstanding. Have a look at this. It's a beautiful ballad as well about our maiden city. We call it the Maiden City, Londonderry on the Foyle. That's the River Foyle. So have a listen to this. And if anybody watching this out here, or you know anybody who's very good at AI, we want to hear from them because we can produce some brilliant propaganda stuff through AI if we have the technology. Have a look.
Tonight I dream about my maiden city. I'll go back to the days I spent there as a boy. I'll dream about the friends I left behind me in my city, Londonderry on the Foyle. Well, my mother writes to me twice weekly, and she tells all the things are going on, and she tells me of the bombings and the shootings in my city, Londonderry on the Foyle. But tonight I lie upon my bed, I'm dreaming. I am dreaming of the friends I left behind. And I dreamt about my sweetheart in the fountain in my city, Londonderry on the Foyle. But once more I'm coming home aboard a steamship on La Foyle, once more in passing by Colmore. And I see those old grey walls still firmly standing there around my city, Londonderry on the Foyle. I can see the old cathedral, it's still standing. Not far away, the old Memorial Hall. And I see the crimson banner still proudly flying o'er my city, Londonderry on the Foyle. O'er my city, Londonderry on the Foyle.
Quite incredible. And I'm in that march coming down, and I just seen, oh my goodness, it just really shocked me there. You know, the young fella get killed on New Year's Eve, young McVeigh. I just seen him there. He was right up at the camera walking by. Young McVeigh, he killed on Christmas Eve in an accident on a farm just up the road here. Just seen him there, and he was marching just in front of me. That was a shock. I never knew he was in that. But anyway, that song and everything, the whole effects, the crowd, that whole thing, that whole song, every bit of music you heard there, the crowd in the background, the clapping, all AI. All AI. What can they do with this AI, Marion? Yeah. We might be able to get rid of you and get an AI person in, an AI thing, a robot. I don't know what they are. Or a program or something. But they can't make tea, Marion. They can't make tea, hen. Can't make tea. Until the AI can make tea, we've no use for them. But if anybody's out there that knows how to work this stuff, We need to get into it because that song is fantastic and all created artificially. How can there be even any artists about these days or musicians when all this is going on? It's unbelievable. I'm shocked. I never knew these things could be done, to be quite honest with you. But there we are. There we are. So, who knows? Right, I want to just, on a sad note now, I just want to remind people that the Ukraine war is still going on. Can you believe it? The Ukraine war is still going on. It's every week, hundreds and hundreds of young men. I don't care if they're Russians or Ukrainians. I don't care anymore. They're dying unnecessarily because the West want this war to go on, and Zelensky's in their pocket. Now, it needs to stop. It just needs to stop. How many more young fellas are going to die before this thing stops? It's an obscenity now. This war carrying on now, in my opinion, is an obscenity. The Ukraine war should have been finished a long time ago. But here's some footage for the front line that these poor lads have put up with. And remember, it's really cold there now. Really, really cold. It's like minus 20. And these people are in the fields, living in the trenches like the First World War, fighting a war of attrition. It's just a meat grinder for both sides. It needs to stop. I really look.
Чья жизнь была игрой без правил. Сын, кто в небо взяв разгон, судьбу свою на кон поставил. Этот трек посвящается им, кто покинул наш мир молодым и уже никогда не вернется. Этот текст посвящается всем, кто ушел навсегда в 27, тем, кто в наших сердцах остается. Всем, кто принял этот бой, чья жизнь была игрой без правил. Всем, кто путь свой выбрал сам, штурмуя небеса,
I mean, it's madness. I mean, nobody's doubting the Ukrainians' bravery, but this is lunacy. This is an obscenity now. It's like the First World War. The whole thing is obscene, and it needs to stop. And if Kit Bear quite rightly says, if it wasn't for Britain sticking their nose in and America sticking their nose in, they'd been over a year ago. Seriously, they'd been over a year ago. But it's especially the EU. It's prolonging this. It's nonsense. And I would say to these politicians in the West, they want the war to go on. Go on then, we'll get you a uniform. Keir Starmer's fanatical about the war. Keir, we'll measure you up, we'll get you a uniform. The Tempers will pay for it, they'll pay for all your kit, everything. And we'll ship you out to Ukraine and you can go and do what you want to do. And if that's what you want to do, because you're demanding the young boys for Ukraine do it, why don't you do it? It's disgusting. It's terrible. Kenwood, how you doing, Kenwood? Nice to see you. Boris Johnson scuppered the peace deal. I know it's madness. It just needs to stop. It needs to stop. It's very depressing. I find it extraordinarily depressing, but it is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to leave you. Hopefully, Mr. Griffin will be here tomorrow. We don't know. We shall see. I thought he was going to be here today, but we got mixed up. So thanks for being here today. I hope you enjoyed that film. I think it was about 15 minutes about the Irish American and all that stuff. You're in. I'll see you later, man. See you tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed that, and especially for the Americans, watch it a couple of times and you really get the grip of some of your own history, because, you know, Americans, they don't know a lot of their own history, and a lot of Americans think they don't have history. Don't kid yourself. You're Europeans. You have a massive history. Doesn't matter if you're from Germany or Sweden or Northern Ireland or Ireland or wherever, Scotland, England, Wales. You have a massive history. And in fact, do you know the flag of Wisconsin's got a wee man standing on it with a pick? That's a Welsh miner, because Wisconsin was settled by Welsh miners. Who knew? I didn't know until I went there, and I said, who's that guy in the flag? And he said, oh, that's a Welsh miner. This guy, I said, I guess, tell a funny story before I go. This guy was called Davies. And I said, oh, Davies, you're Welsh then? He says, no, I'm American. I says, yeah, I know you're American, because he was from there, from Wisconsin. I said, yeah, but your ancestors must have been Welsh. He went, no, don't think so. We've always been American. His name is Davies. It's a massive, it's like McDonald being a Scottish name. Davies is a Welsh name. It's like Jones is a Welsh name. Or Evans, very Welsh names. But he didn't know that. It's insane, isn't it? I said that to someone. War is the kinetic side of politics. I don't know who said it, but they're right. And it's nobody wins. Nobody wins. Look at the First World War. What a disaster that was. Shocking stuff. Well, I'm going to leave you with a wee bit of Cossack dancing. I like the Cossacks. I mean, we betrayed them at the end of the Second World War, and a lot of them get slaughtered. But these boys can fight, and they still live in tribes to this day. And a lot of them are in Ukraine as well, but they don't like the Ukrainians. So we'll leave you with this wee bit of music and a wee bit of sword dancing. It's unbelievable. Really brilliant. There's some ones you do with the nice, attractive women doing the sword dancing. That's for tourists. This is the real deal. So I'm going to leave you with that, and hopefully Mr. Gifford back tomorrow. But I'll be back with you on Sunday if the good Lord preserved me. But remember, until then, stick close to God. You won't go far wrong. Deuce Vault.
Стоял казак, он Богу молился за свободу, за народ, резко поклонился. Бойся